I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but I genuinely believe that the depression that you feel is almost always directly correlated with your current life situation, with your current life circumstances. When you feel depressed, it's your soul speaking to you. Your soul is begging for you to make a change. Your soul is begging you to take that leap of faith or take that risk or make that pivot. Maybe it's something that you've been subconsciously avoiding or trying to push to the back of your mind. And you're trying not to listen, right? That's when you start indulging in escapisms, whether it be going to parties or doing drugs or doing alcohol or chasing girls or immersing yourself in social media or trying to go out every night. Maybe you're that one person in the friend group that asks everyone what's the move and it's like 4 a.m. And you're doing all these things that momentarily distract you from your soul or your higher self from speaking to you. You're subconsciously trying to drown out the truth and reality with white noise, but no matter what you do, you can't lie to yourself. A lot of people are susceptible to this, and when you do this, this is only going to lead you down a route of long-term spiritual suffering. Every single person has a certain expectation of what your life should look like, especially in the near future. For example, right, maybe you're a student and you're about to take your finals and you're going to study extra hard, expecting to get an A, expecting to get a 4.0. Maybe you've been working at this job or this company and you've been grinding really hard trying to get that promotion or trying to get that raise. Maybe you finally approached that attractive girl that you've been meaning to and you have a date with her lined up this week and you're expecting to take her on a date and maybe she flakes on you. Whenever that expectation does not align with your reality, that's when you start to feel depressed. That's why it's almost always correlated to your current life situation. That's why the feeling of depression is relative. It's why a multi-millionaire with everything in the world, a high status individual, can still feel depressed. And it's also why a broke homeless individual who, let's say, found $20 on the ground, in that moment can feel significantly happier than the rich depressed person. Like, it's almost always correlated to your current expectations of your situation, which is why the feeling of depression is almost always correlated to your current life circumstances. And listen, right, I already know that some of the clinically depressed crowd is gonna dislike and be like, bro, you don't understand, you don't know what you're talking about, my chemicals are imbalanced. Sure, you can have that, whatever, right? Just assume I'm not talking about you. Listen, right, one thing you can't deny is that if you think that something is outside of your control, then you're going to be right, regardless of whether you're actually right or wrong. Like, nobody is going to help you or change your mind if you believe that. If you believe that you're going to lose, you're going to lose. If you believe that you can't lose weight, you're not going to lose weight. If you believe that you're depressed and you can't control it, then you're guaranteeing that to be the case. And that's not something you can argue with or dispute whether you think it's clinical or not. And having someone else like a therapist validate that belief does not change your life in any way. No matter how much you talk about something, eventually you're going to have to take action. Like, you can sit there and tell someone all the reasons as to why life sucks all you want. It might make you feel better momentarily, but it doesn't actually change anything. The answer is always going to be the same. And actually, funnily enough, I used to have this coworker who was depressed and held the same beliefs, and I actually changed his mind. And it was back when I used to work at this Hawaiian barbecue. If you don't know what that is, that's basically a fast food spot. But basically, I had this coworker named David. Now, David was kind of a pasty white dude, real tall, real skinny, about 6'2", 6'3", a bit of a skinny fat build, kind of long shaggy hair, probably exactly what you're imagining right now. And he was kind of always on his phone and he wouldn't really talk to anyone. I think I was 20 at the time and he was 24 or 25. And he was also real liberal as well. He would talk about how, like, we didn't have the right to kill insects or spiders because they were living things, and how guys that go to the gym were toxically masculine. Like, it was real weird. Like, I remember there was one day where I killed a spider and he didn't get mad necessarily, but he started asking me like, yo, why didn't you just like let it outside? Like, it has the right to live and all this stuff. And at the time I couldn't tell if he was being serious either. But yeah, basically one day I got paired up with him on shift. And listen, right, I've always been relatively good at having deep conversations and being easy to talk to. It's one of the things I take pride in. Even as some people with differing beliefs, and I've had a lot of practice through a lot of dates, you kind of just try to listen very well and ask selective questions that challenges their views without being confrontational. And it's actually kind of fun watching the gears turn in their mind. But basically, David started telling me about how he's been depressed for the past 2 years, he's been taking antidepressants, going to therapy, etc. And throughout that entire shift, he basically told me his entire life story. How he went to college, how he got a useless degree, now he's working fast food, he doesn't have a social life, he can't talk to girls, was a gamer, watched a lot of Twitch streams on his free time, had a weed addiction. And he would talk about how he's not active, how he doesn't play his sport, he has a bad sleep schedule. And you can kind of tell, right? Like, I would always see him on Reddit during his free time. Basically it doesn't take Einstein to get the entire profile breakdown. And long story short, there was this one moment where I was asking him about the therapy he's been going to and how he's still depressed even going to his therapy for so long. And I'll never forget what he said because he responded with, "Yeah, but it'd be worse if I didn't go." But the craziest thing about this is that throughout our entire conversation, he was quite literally saying everything in his life that was making him depressed without actually pointing out those things as the root cause. Like, you're saying all these things that are negatives in your life, but you're not addressing it as a problem or things that need to be solved. And I think the reason for that is because if you admit that these things are what's making you feel depressed, then the next thing you have to admit to yourself is that you have to change those specific things. Therefore, you're going to be confronted with the reality that number one, it's going to be hard, it's going to be uncomfortable. And number two, nobody is going to do it for you. Nobody can do it for you. And that's something that's very hard to accept, especially if you're a person who believes that you have no agency over your own life. And as he was telling me all these negative things, I was like, yeah, anyone would be depressed. Anyone would feel depressed if their current circumstances were what you described. And I remember I asked him, and this is where he got kind of defensive. I was like, maybe you should start trying to change these certain things in your life. Maybe try to go outside a bit more. Maybe try to eat healthy. Maybe start working out a bit. If you say that you have a weed addiction, maybe try smoking less weed. It's like, okay, you went to college and you feel like you're wasting your degree. So does 50% of college graduates. Maybe take some time to sit there and reflect on what you really want to do. Start from square one. Might be a long road ahead, but taking the right steps is better than doing nothing and then feeling sorry for yourself. Because one thing's for sure, right? If you have no direction in life, you will 100% feel depressed. Human beings need a purpose. Like, if you have no purpose, you're always going to feel like something's missing or something is off about life. And I remember I asked him, like, what does therapy do specifically? And he said something along the lines of helping you process or regulate your emotions. I forgot what he said exactly. But what stuck out to me the most was his response when I made my suggestions on maybe you should try X, Y, and Z. But he was like, I guess maybe I could try going to the gym and try to be alpha or whatever. On my life, that was his exact response. I remember it word for word. Quite literally one of the things I've ever heard in my life. Like, it's so crazy to me that some people think like this and have even gotten to the age of 25. In my head, I was like, the fact that you associate basic working out and staying in shape with being alpha or a form of toxic masculinity, that is the biggest cope, the most weak-minded frame that I've ever heard to not utilize your body. Quite literally one of the things I've ever heard in my life. That frame of mind actually explains in itself as to why you're depressed. Like, bro, anybody would feel depressed if those were their current circumstances, and these things are things that you can change. But basically I said maybe try to focus on these things in your life that you yourself are saying are labeling yourself as depressed from, that you yourself are acknowledging as something that is negative in your life. Before automatically saying that your current state of being is something you can't change, maybe try getting in shape, maybe set a goal for yourself, maybe go outside, maybe get some sun. Force yourself to put yourself out there, learn a new skill, pick up a hobby, talk to a stranger. All I'm saying is maybe address some of your current life circumstances before taking pills and giving money to a stranger to validate your problems. Like, before labeling yourself as depressed, take an honest look at your current life circumstances. What are you genuinely discontent with in your life? Maybe your job sucks, maybe school sucks, maybe you feel like your degree is pointless, maybe you're making money but you have no social life. Maybe you feel lonely, maybe you can't talk to girls and you want a relationship. Maybe you've been drinking too much, doing too much drugs, indulging in a bit of escapism or hedonism. Maybe you need to find God. Like, what exactly in my life am I specifically discontent with? What am I missing? And oftentimes you should know, because that depression is an inward reflection of your external world not matching your expectations. And you got to be honest with yourself, because if you lie to yourself, then even you're not working for yourself. And if you're not going to do it for yourself, then who's going to do it for you? Like, there's something currently in your life right now that's not working out, that's causing friction in your mind, your body, or your soul. Maybe that friction is caused by you trying to fight against or shut out what your soul is telling you. Maybe it's a combination of all three things. Like, a lot of people truly underestimate the power of compounding interest and momentum in your life. Most of us are too short-sighted to see the forest beyond the trees. It's kind of like this, right? You might think that, oh, if I go to the gym, then all that's going to happen is I might get stronger and I might lose some weight. But what you don't think about is how it affects your confidence, how it affects your social life, how it affects you mentally. Maybe getting in shape was exactly what you needed to apply for that job. Or even something like picking up a hobby, right? One might just see it as something that kills time. What you don't see is the people that you might meet. You don't see the friendships that you might make. And basically what I'm trying to say is that everything positive you do in life, no matter how small it is, everything positive will lead to something else that's positive as well. And the same thing goes for things that are negative in your life as well. Like, life is very linear in that aspect. And this is always something that I try to keep in mind, because you're never going to see everything. When you feel like your life sucks or things are negative or you're depressed, there's oftentimes there's more than just one root cause. Just try to keep compounding interest and momentum in the back of your mind when you're living life. Every positive action leads to something else that's positive, and the same thing goes for negative. Anyways, hopefully you guys got some from that, a bit of motivation. Oh yeah, and also DM me questions on IG. I'm doing a Q&A right now. Also join the Patreon if you want to see more content. I've been uploading pretty consistently on there. You can subscribe and watch the entire catalog of videos so far. A lot of dating game breakdowns, a lot of reactions, a lot of value. So yeah, check it out. I've been real consistent on that. Feel free to book a call if you want to talk to me one-on-one. And yeah, with that said, make sure you guys stay true. Hope you guys are doing well. Talk to you guys real soon. And yeah, I'll see you at the top. Peace.